Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Combat Corner, where we talk everything combat sports. On tonight's show, we're going to talk about UFC 310 and recap this card that took place yesterday in Las Vegas to close out the calendar year for the UFC. I don't know. Do they have any other cards after this? I don't recall. Yeah, they do. They have one next week. That's dumb. I should know because I live in Florida. They have the card next week. Colby Covington against Joaquin Buckley up in Tampa. That should be a good fight. I'm actually excited about seeing if Colby Covington actually returns to being Colby Covington or if he is just a washed-up fighter who needs to retire. But we will find out next week on that. But talking about the card yesterday, I said prior to that it was a 4 of 10, 5 of 10 at best. It wasn't something that had me excited. I didn't really care all that much about the card. I love MMA, so of course I watched it. I did not see every fight. I will say that as well. I did not see every fight. I did not see all the early prelims because I was watching college football. But just looking at what happened in this card, just if you go through it, you have a main event that most people would be completely unfamiliar with. Kai Asakura, he comes over from Ryzen, and Alexander Pantoja. They just fed him some meat because he's dominated his division. He has beaten pretty much everybody in the top 10 or almost everybody in the top 10 who has deserved an opportunity to fight him or earned an opportunity to fight him. And he hasn't beaten them all as champion, but he's a dominant fighter. He's an absolutely exceptional fighter. So it's one of those things where do you want him to fight Brandon Royval again, who we just beat? Do you want him to fight Brandon Moreno again, who we just beat? Moreno's coming off of a big win. So could Moreno be the next fight for Pantoja? Possibly. I love watching Moreno fight, so I would love to see these two guys fight again. I know it'll be the fourth time they fought. I thought Moreno arguably won the last fight, but Kai Asakura comes in and got destroyed. He got destroyed. And I appreciate the fact that Pantoja came in and says, I'm gonna make an example of this guy. I'm gonna make an example of him because end of the day, I'm the champion. You bring this guy over, you want him to fight me for a belt, and I'm going to whoop his ass. And that's exactly what happened. He whooped his ass. Submits him in the second round, rear naked choke. Just a great performance. Loved every second of it. I'm very happy that that's what happened because if Kai Sakura had come into the UFC and beaten Pantoja, that would speak volumes about the division. The flyweight division will look like a joke. To have the best fighters in the world get beat by a guy who just came over and whose best win was Kyojo Horiguchi, who's a good fighter, but not some elite level fighter, in my opinion. So Pantoja rolls with an easy win. But this card, as I said, 4 out of 10, it was probably worse than that. So let's start it from the bottom because just talked about the main event. Here you got first fight. I picked Kennedy, and I picked Kennedy. He won first round KO. Move on to the next. This is the one where I said I picked Chase Hooper. I picked Chase Hooper to win this fight. Chase Hooper took care of Clay Guida rather quickly. 341 submission. Clay Guida has to retire. Can we stop putting these old in the tooth fighters in the octagon? I don't want to see it anymore. I'm so sick of watching over the hill guys who are so past their prime that it's just like you do it for the nostalgia of it. But Clay Guida is the second fight on an early prelim. That should tell you that the man has to hang this crap up. And really to get dominated, taken down 3 times, submitted inside of 4 minutes, it's just enough already. Move on, Clay. It's over. I love your excitement, but it's time to go. Then we move into Michael Chiesa, Max Griffin. I picked Max Griffin in this fight. Didn't really know what to expect. Like I said, I didn't see these early fights, but it looks like it was a good scrap. And Chiesa wins via submission in round 3. Looks like he overall kind of controlled the fight based on the statistics alone. But big win for Chiesa. I mean, maybe he thinks he's back in contention to do something. Joshua Van, Cody Durden. I picked Joshua Van. He wins the fight via unanimous decision. Looks like he completely outstruck Cody Durden. But decision win for Joshua Van. This makes me sad. Like Chris Weidman, I've been a fan of Chris Weidman for a very long time. I really hoped he would have retired by now. But if he doesn't retire now, I don't know when this man is going to retire. The UFC may need to do it for him. They may need to do it for him, seriously, because Chris Weidman forgot he's a wrestler. Like, this man legitimately forgot he was a wrestler. He got absolutely pummeled. He got pummeled. And this one I did see. Eric Anders is long in the tooth also, but this was abusive. This was a whooping. Round 2, KO. Chris Weidman, enough already. Please, Chris, for the sake of your life, your family, all that stuff, it's over. Chris Weidman is in that same position as Clay Guida. Enough. I don't want to see this anymore. Moving into the prelims, this was a very close fight. I know Dana White says that he thought that Randy Brown won this fight. I mean, a very close fight. I'm disappointed in Brian Battle because Brian Battle had gained a lot of brownie points for his performance in France, his mic work, his promo cutting. That was really dope, but you can't come in 5 pounds overweight. Like, I don't give a fuck. You cannot come in 5 pounds overweight. It's massively unprofessional. He looked sunken in as hell in the weigh-in. Didn't like the way he looked. I thought it could be what ends up causing him to lose his fight. Randy Brown did voice his displeasure and said this guy's going to come in weighing 220 pounds. I'm sure he didn't weigh 220 because that'd be like a 50-pound weight gain. But I'm sure he probably weighed close to 200 in this fight. Battle does win a split decision, but because he comes in overweight, what does it really mean? You know, I just don't like this. I think there has to be true consequence for coming in overweight. I'm so sick and tired of seeing individuals come in at weight and then fight guys that are 5, 3, 4, 5 pounds. You know they're not trying to cut at that point. They're not cutting. They're like, screw that shit. I'm not going to cut. And then what happens? You have a guy who has an advantage, although Brian Battle did look almost sickly walking in. So I wonder how much longer this man has at 170. Maybe he's going to end up having to move up to 185, for which I don't know that I don't know how successful he would be at 185. I think he needs to work on his nutrition and getting his ass ready for fights, because it's completely unprofessional when you walk in 4 or 5 pounds over and then you get the win on top of that. It's almost like a punch in the gut to the sport. You sacrifice some money, but you won, and now they'll say, oh, well, let's give him better competition. Why? You have to earn that. Like, that's an earned situation. Like, I remember when Yoel Romero missed weight by a bunch. Like, it was like, why would he earn a title fight off of missing weight by 4 pounds? Didn't like that. Then don't like it now. But Brian Battle gets the win. Most of our Evloev and Aljamain Sterling. This was a fight that, you voiced your displeasure on the fact that it's on an undercard when it should be on the main card, on the pay-per-view card. But you also know that you're going to get a heavy dose of grappling. And a lot of people forget grappling. Grappling includes jiu-jitsu to me. See, grappling is not just wrestling. For me, grappling is not just wrestling. Grappling is wrestling, and you're trying to actually win a fight. You're not just trying to hold him. You're not trying to backpack him. And I think that's one of the problems that I've always had with Aljamain Sterling is he doesn't really look to win. He looks to control. And if you're not looking to win, you're in the wrong sport. Go and wrestle. Go be an Olympic wrestler. I mean, obviously, you're too old for that now, but get in grappling tournaments, like wrestling tournaments. Like, why are you in this? Because you're not looking to win. I mean, just looking at the striking. Overall strikes, 136-45. When Evloev was on top of Aljo, he was hitting him. When Aljo had control, he didn't hit anybody. And I thought the fight was fairly close. I mean, when you look at it from a perspective of round 3, where Aljo has 3 takedowns, but he ends up getting hit knocked with 72 strikes to 13. You wonder if that flips the table and flips the script. I thought Aljo clearly won round 1, and I thought Evloev won round 2, and round 3 was a good round until Aljo just took the position and allowed him to be he allowed himself to get control. So I don't know what this does for Evloev. But for Aljo, it's really now a decision he has to look at making. Is 145 the right division for him? Because he lacks striking skills. He lacks the ability to throw hands. He's a wrestler, true and true. He does not try to submit people like he should. He tries to control them for much too long. And I don't know that he's big enough to beat these guys. Like, he was as big as Cater, but Evloev looked huge next to him, like just a different size, for real. So that's a win for Evloev, this unanimous decision. He's obviously now in conversations for a title shot. I really think that a fight with him, and because I think right now you're looking at a fight between Topuria and Volkanovski, and you give him a rematch with Lopez, who he beat when Lopez first came in. I think Lopez pieces him up in a rematch. I think Lopez is a different guy now. He actually have a chance to train for the fight. But that would be a nice fight for Evloev to see if you really are that dude, because Lopez is on fire right now. Moving to Vicente Luque, Themba Gorimbo. That was quick work by Vicente Luque. Quick choke, submission inside of a minute. I mean, what do you say? Submitted inside of a minute. So, what's next for Luque? I have no idea. Luque is a mid-card guy. He's a guy that you're never going to see become a contender, but he's a fun fighter. He's going to bring it, and you're always going to be excited and get a treat from him. But I don't know what's next for Luque. Now, moving into the next fight, the main fight of the prelim. When I saw that Anthony Smith missed weight for this fight, I was kind of upset because I didn't know. I had not seen. I thought he'd missed weight. So I thought, okay, he didn't miss weight by 1.5 pounds. Did he come back in and then make the weight? Oh, okay, I think he. Oh, okay. So he ended up coming back and made the weight. Okay, I take it back because the initial thing I saw was that he had missed weight. So it seems like he did come back and make weight, and when he came back to weigh in again. But I didn't know that Anthony Smith's coach died. Obviously, that's a situation that they are very best friends, as Anthony Smith said, but he had no business being in the cage. He shouldn't have been in the octagon. And I think Dominic Reyes owes him a bit of thanks, because any other person probably drops out of this fight. And that's the character of Anthony Smith. So I apologize for my thoughts that I said. And I think I said a social media post where I said it's just unprofessional to come in and not make weight, especially for a guy like Anthony Smith who always talks about people being professional. So when I see he's coming out, when he's crying and all that, going to the octagon, this guy's not prepared to fight. He's not ready. Mentally, he's not there. And then all of a sudden he's in the octagon, he's crying and whatever, and then Reyes comes in, and now all of a sudden he has a snarl on his face, right? But are you really ready to fight? The reality was he wasn't. His mind was not right. And I wish Anthony Smith would have just put the gloves in the center of the cage, in the center of the octagon after the fight, because he's done. There's nothing left for him. He got absolutely mauled. Like, it was painful. The fight probably could have been stopped with about 2 minutes to go in the second round. It was allowed to go way too long. Smith was just getting beaten the fuck up. First round, he was decent. He looked all right. And then he got clipped. And then that was pretty much it. Because he was doing some shit where he's just like, hit me type shit. Like, I gotta get rid of my pain by feeling some pain type thing. It was almost looking like a Rocky movie where it's like, hit me harder, hit me harder. Except in the Rocky movie, he eats the punch from Clubber Lang or eats the punch from Drago. Whereas in this case, Anthony Smith ate a few and then he got cracked. And Dominic Reyes is not a guy who you want to say, hit me harder, hit me harder. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, yeah, they could have stopped that fight midway through round 2 because Smith just was on the ground and wasn't even really trying to get up. And the commentators are basically saying the same thing. It was sad. And then he's crying in the post fight, and are we going to see him again? And he says probably not, but he doesn't commit to it. I'm sure like everybody, Anthony Smith wants to go out with a win. But the problem that happens when you win your last fight is you think you can keep fighting. The reality is Anthony Smith is he's old in the tooth. And here's the thing, like Anthony Smith, he might be, how old is he? Anthony Smith is 36, right? John Jones is 37. Anthony Smith has 59 fights in MMA. 59. That man has been through, he's weathered. He is a weathered fighter. If John Jones had fought 59 times by now, he'd have lost. He would have lost. Now, would he have lost 21 times like Anthony Smith has? No. But Anthony's fluctuated between weight classes. He's had some hot, good streaks, some bad streaks, some good streaks again, to the point where he earned a title shot with John Jones. But I hope this is it for Anthony Smith. Now, Dominic Reyes, he's 2 in a row for Dominic Reyes. Does he have the opportunity, the ability to get himself back in contention for a title shot? I think a fight with him and Alex Pereira would be fun. Now, it's nowhere near the time, but I think it would be fun. Because one thing that Dominic Reyes can do is Dominic Reyes can crack. He's a good striker. He's a good fighter. That would be a fight that at some point I would love to see if he continues to win. He's currently ranked 12th. I don't think Johnny Walker's in any position. Volkan Ozdemir, Krylov, Olberg could be. I think Reyes-Olberg would be a good fight. I think Reyes and Carlos Olberg would be a good fight. Because he just beat Dustin Jacoby. Before that, he lost to Ryan Spann, Yuri Prohashka, and John Blachowicz. And the fight before that was the John Jones fight that many of us thought he won. So there's a lot of fights that you can make for Dominic Reyes. Khalil Roundtree is a fight you can make for him. Alexander Rakic is a fight you can make for him. So there's a bunch of fights that are out there for Dominic Reyes that would be fun fights. Absolutely fun fights, slobber knocker level fights, where I would love to see that. Let's see if this man has got his swag back. I thought he'd win this fight, and he did win the fight. By the way, I did obviously pick Luke. I picked Aljo. I picked Brian Battle. But moving in to the next one, this is where it just got stupid. This fight should not be on a pay-per-view. Like we need to stop this shit. Nate Landwehr versus Doo Ho Choi. I picked Doo Ho Choi. He absolutely dismantled Nate Landwehr. It was like varsity versus JV. He absolutely beat the brakes off of him. Nate Landwehr didn't know what to do. He got pieced the freaking hell up. It was a whooping. Doo Ho Choi beat him up on the feet. He beat him up on the ground. He beat him up wherever he wanted to beat him up. He pelted him. I mean, it was a whoop. It was a thorough ass whooping. I'm actually kind of surprised he didn't get a performance of the night bonus on this one, because it was a thorough dismantling. I understand why the other guys who got them, and they did deserve it. They did earn them. Luke winning in less than a minute, obviously earned it. Hooper earned it. Kennedy earned it. But there's something to be said for thoroughly beaten the brakes out of somebody. And that's what happened in this fight. Du Hoi Choi got the easy win. I mean, it was an easy win. It wasn't even competitive. I mean, the numbers, what were the numbers? 114 to 32 in strikes. Surprised there was that many. I'm surprised there was that many. It was that close, actually. Moving into the next fight, the fight that another one had no business being on the main card. Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie should never get another fight in the UFC. He should never get another fight in the UFC. I do not know how he had 90 landed strikes on Bryce Mitchell. I don't know when he landed them. Maybe someone can clue me in because I watched that fight. I watched the guy jump guard over and over again. I watched him literally jump him like a bear hug and pull him down to be on the bottom. It was ridiculous. Bryce Mitchell nearly got himself in a bad situation, nearly got himself submitted in the end of round 2. Got himself in some hairy situation with the armbar. But round 3, he did that same bullshit, jump guard, and Bryce Mitchell this time just said, fuck that. I'm going to bury your ass into the ground. He did that. Kron Gracie's head smashes the back of the freaking of the canvas, and Bryce Mitchell drops big elbows on him and finishes the fight via knockout. Who does Bryce Mitchell fight next? Who knows? Who cares? I hate saying something like who cares, because this was a fight that was a waste of time. This is like, why is Kron Gracie even in this fight? Why? If you look at Bryce Mitchell right now, I mean, he's obviously very good. He lost to Josh Emmett. Before that, he beat Dan Ige, which was a big time when he lost to Topuria. He beat Barbosa. He beat Andre Fili. He beat Rosa. You got a bunch of good wins. I mean, so why would you go from fighting Josh Emmett to fighting Kron Gracie? Like, when you think of it that way, you're looking from the perspective of that. Like, this guy took a major step back in competition. He's ranked 13th. He beat Ige, who's 14th. He beat Barbosa, who's 15th. What's next for Bryce Mitchell? I would say Josh Emmett's ranked 8th. I mean, maybe a fight with Calvin Kattar. Maybe a fight with Lerone Murphy. Maybe a fight with Arnold Allen. Maybe Brian Ortega. I don't want to see him fight Aljo. Really don't. Not interested. He keeps coming off of a win. Aljo's coming off of a loss. But I wouldn't mind seeing one of these guys, him fight one of these guys. Let's see where he's at, because the Kron Gracie fight taught you absolutely nothing. Nothing. Taught you nothing. Moving into I don't know what's wrong with the graphic here for the UFC, but moving into this screw job with Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov. Alexander Volkov won that fight. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Volkov won that fight. Cyril Gane embarrassed himself. Round 3 was an embarrassment. Horrible. Horrible. I don't know who. I don't know how you could have watched that fight and thought that Cyril Gane won. I don't care what the stats said. It do not matter to me. I don't care. I don't know how you could watch that fight and think that Cyril Gane won that fight. I thought Volkov won that fight clearly and got screwed. I thought he won 2 rounds clearly and got screwed. Just stupid. Nonsense. I'll tell you right now, if Dana White does it right and his matchmakers do it right, they fight a 3rd time. Their next fight's going to be each other again. And I'm going to make it a 5-round fight. Make it a 5-round fight. Because Cyril Gane was done. End of round 3. He couldn't get up. He laid on the canvas. He knew he lost. Horrible decision. Now we move into Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Machado Gary. 2 undefeated fighters. And this might be an unpopular opinion. This fight sucked. Like, this fight was terrible. Awful. Not enjoyable. Didn't look like 2 guys who were trying to come and win a title shot. It looked like 2 guys that were more worried about not losing. I thought Gary did a good job not getting taken down, although I watched Rakhmonov piece people up standing. I saw Gary go for that kick to the knee, thigh area a number of times. He did threaten a submission on Rachmanov in round 5. I think it was round five, yeah. But I just for all the shit that Gary talks, he is, if he's not a bigger guy than his opponent, he's not gonna. He's just he rubs me the wrong way because when you look at his wins, you look at the guys he's beaten. He beats Jeff Neal, who he's way bigger than. He beats MVP in a fight that MVP, if he just stayed on top in round 3, he wins the fight easily. Like Gary wouldn't even have been in this fight. Go to Neil Magny, who's long in the tooth. Daniel Rodriguez. I wouldn't mind seeing them fight again. But I don't. There weren't. You don't have the fights here that are against guys that make you say, "Oh my God," type of thing. So, yeah, I'm not a believer in Ian Gary. I'm not a believer in Rachmanov either. I'm not. And I said it beforehand. There's nothing about Rachmanov. I mean, Rachmanov, they both have a common opponent in Jeff Neal. And I think both of them, well, neither of them look great in that fight. And both of them are way bigger than Jeff Neal. Rachmanov's last fight was a win over Wonder Boy. Big deal. He beat Magny. Like, they beat the same guys. And end of the day, it's like, I don't see how you go from Wonder Boy to a title shot. I just don't see it. And I'm going to tell you this. Kamaru Usman, I know he's coming off of 3 straight losses. I know he is. I would rather see Kamaru Usman fight Bilal Muhammad than to watch either of these two fight Bilal Muhammad. And I think Bilal Muhammad will take Shavkat Rachmanov's lunch. People will tell me I'm crazy. I think he would absolutely dominate Rachmanov and Gary. They're not on his level. I don't think Rachmanov or Gary beat Leon Edwards. I genuinely do not. I don't think either of those guys beat Leon Edwards. I don't think either of those guys beat Kamaru Usman. It's just one of those things where I'm not in love with the Rachmanov Bilal Muhammad fight. I wasn't in love with it when they announced it. And I'll tell you this, and this will be unpopular. If Colby Covington does what he's supposed to do and he beats Joaquin Buckley next week, or this week actually, he's now back in the conversation. People don't like it, but Joaquin Buckley's a top 10 guy, and he was supposed to fight Gary, and Gary's ranked behind him. And if he beats Joaquin Buckley, Colby Covington legitimately could be a fight away from another title shot. And there's a reason for that. He speaks. He sells. Whether you like him or you hate him, he sells fights. He makes you want to turn on the television. It's just a fact. Now, if he loses to Joaquin Buckley, forget about it. It's not worth the conversation. But if he wins this fight against Joaquin Buckley, which I expect him to do so, these two guys don't do anything for me, man. They just don't. They just don't do anything for me. And I thought Rachmanov would destroy Ian Gary. I thought he would wipe him out. And I think he dominated the fight for the most part. Outside of a couple of times where Gary did some work. I mean, if you look at overall, the stats are very skewed because Rachmanov completely controlled Gary for rounds 1 and 2. Those 2 rounds, I thought, while the strikes are close, it was complete control. I mean, Rachmanov dictated where the fight went. Round 3, I thought Gary won. I thought he won that round, but it was still another close round. Round 4, Rachmanov won easily. Gary just allowed him to take the position. And at that point, you knew that Gary had to not finish the fight to get the win, and he didn't. And even around 5, that's where the strike difference came. But by the end of the round, who was on top? Rachmanov was on top. So I thought Rachmanov won the fight clearly. Fight was not exciting. Not two guys that I think were fighting for a number one spot, and not enough to where I know they got it. They're looking at. I mean, they had Bilal come in the ring, and it was funny because Joe Rogan said, "Secure doesn't even know who he is. Let him in, please. He's the champion." I don't know, man. I just it doesn't. Let me think about this for a second. When would this fight be? You have a main event for January. You have a main event for February. So you're looking March or April earliest, right? Because from December. So like Shavkat Rakhmonov would not have any time off for a March fight. So I'm thinking it's April, because you're looking December to January, January to February. So you're talking 3 months. He just had a 5-round fight. He probably wants to take a few weeks off and then get ready. I think you're looking at April. What can happen between now and then? What can happen between now and then? Ask yourself that question. Can something happen between now and then? I don't know. I don't know. If you look at the Makhachev-Sarukian card, are there any middleweights? I mean, welterweights on this card? No. This card's fire. This card, this UFC 311, this is fire. You guys always think I'm negative, probably. This card is fire. This is I mean, for Christ's sakes, you have Makhachev and Sarukian, Merab and Umar, Dariush Moicano, Prohachka Hill, Holland against Renier de Ritter, Walker and Bogdan Gustav, like an Anthony Smith clone. Peyton Talbot's a stud against Raoni Barcelos. Jalton Almeida is a monster against Sergey Spivak. Can he take Spivak down? Let's see what happens there. I mean, you got some dog fights in here, man. And I mean, look, you have ranked fighters fighting in the early prelims. This is a fight card. I like this card a lot at Inglewood, where the Clippers play. And if you look into the next fight card, Duplessis and Strickland, by that point it's too late. But I really think that Kamaru Usman sells better with Bilal Muhammad than Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I mean, I hate the thought of giving a man who lost 3 straight fights a title shot, but I just think Bilal Muhammad destroys Rakhmonov. I don't think it's a close fight. I was not impressed. Not impressed at all. But then that leaves the main event, which we talked about already, Pantoja, Asakura, whooping. That's it. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be talking about UFC 311 and the upcoming card in the next couple of weeks as we get closer. But be sure to like, subscribe, follow, hit that bell. Greatly appreciate you jumping on here and checking out what we got to say. But again, this is Combat Corner. Power, come on now, the podcast. Come on now.